Every now and then, I end up scrolling through Steam looking for something new. Half the time, it's generic slop. Half the time, it's something so bizarre I can't tell if it's genius or a complete disaster. But every once in a while, you get lucky. That's pretty much what happened here. Somehow, I found out there's a sequel to Brigador, which is not a game I expected most people to even remember, let alone get a follow-up. It released in 2015 or 16, I got to play it around 5 years after that. Brigador was this gritty, violent, isometric game where you played as mercenary pilots called Brigadors. Your whole job was basically to betray your planet while flattening entire city blocks, all the while murdering your way through dozens and dozens of contracts with the goal of eventually making enough money to leave this whole mess behind you. Basically, you were the bad guys, in a way.
One also bears witness.
That was a huge part of what made it memorable, so when I saw Brigador Killers pop up, my first thought was, wait, where exactly do you even go from there? And that's where the setup immediately got my attention. This time, you're not one of those mercenary mech drivers tearing cities apart for profit, you're part of a hit squad going after them. That alone is such a good premise. Instead of being the unstoppable force from the first game, now you're hunting the people who used to be in your seat, and I'm guessing you eventually become an unstoppable force yourself. So, right away, this already feels like more than just the developers bringing Brigador back for the sake of it. Stellar Jockeys, the team behind the original game, actually seems like they're trying to take this world somewhere new instead of just repeating the same old formula. And after playing through the demo, yeah, there's definitely a lot to dig into. The first few minutes really caught me off guard, as instead of immediately tossing you back into a mech, it opens up with you starting what basically amounts to a full-blown terrorist attack. You're rolling through city sectors in this bizarre ball-like vehicle, tearing through civilians, cars, and infrastructure like a human wrecking ball. It really brings you back to what made the first game so much dumb fun, just complete destruction all around. But that's not the surprise, because then the camera pulls back. Now you're watching this unfold through the eyes of 4 different characters, seeing it on the news, and that shift tends to matter because it immediately changes the tone from a pure destruction simulator to a bit of backstory. Those 4 characters, Local, Future, Cavalier, and Selector, are your hit team, and from there the game starts introducing its bigger focus. Assassination. That's probably the first major difference people are going to notice. This isn't just about leveling districts anymore, as a lot of the early demo is more grounded, with you hunting specific targets and learning how these operatives function. So you also learn to get used to smaller scale combat before the mechs really start cutting loose. And yeah, this is also where some of the early roughness starts showing, because the first thing I noticed was the controls. Mouse and keyboard felt significantly better, which in all fairness they do state once you load up the game. Controller felt awkward pretty fast, especially once inventory management came into play. The inventory system already has some interesting ideas with scavenging and weight, but right now it definitely feels clunky. Like, a good foundation needs work type of clunky. That said, the world tone and direction were enough to keep me invested, as it already feels like Brigador, just from a different angle. Once the demo starts handing you actual assassination contracts, this is where you really begin figuring out what Brigador Killers wants to be. The first mission has you hunting Sieghart Bulver, an ex-soldier turned corporate figure, and the setup is simple. Kill him in the short window between him leaving a building and getting into his car, face to face. That first mission really tells you as a player what you'll be getting into, at least at the start of the game. A very different kind of tension than the original. You're on foot using smaller combat suits while managing weapons more directly. Instead of flattening neighborhoods, you're trying to execute a clean hit and get out. I dropped him pretty quickly, stole a police car and left. Well, I did a few donuts and committed a bit of vehicular manslaughter, and then I left. Then Mission 2 shifts gears again. Now you're playing as Cavalier, who, by the way, has telescopes in his eye sockets, which already tells you Brigador Killers hasn't lost its weirdness. This one focuses on distance, patience, and sniping. Your target is L. Wrightson, and the mission teaches a mechanic you'll probably be using throughout the game. Crouching. I mean, you do play as people after all, and crouching extends your aim, so once you have that knowledge in mind, you have to scavenge the level for a conveniently placed sniper rifle and line up a kill from across the river. The premise was cool. You even called the guy on the phone just to basically tell him he's already dead. Great touch. The actual shooting felt a little off for me though. Not terrible, just early. Like the systems are there, but still need refinement. That's kind of where my thoughts were sitting after these first few contracts. The ideas are very strong, but the execution? Still clearly demo territory. But that wasn't really killing my interest yet. If anything, it felt more like Brigador Killers were still warming up. And once the later missions started opening up more freedom, that's where things got a lot more interesting. By the time I hit the next couple of contracts, this is where it really started showing more of what it could actually become. Not every mission landed the same way. The third hit puts you in control of future, and your target is Nelina Ka, a woman who sold out her home for survival. She's fortified herself inside a reinforced estate and built herself a panic room, so naturally the solution here is subtlety. And by subtlety, I mean driving a bomb-filled van directly onto her property. I really like this mission conceptually. The setup itself is great. Roll up in what's basically a rigged delivery vehicle, get it inside, leave before anyone catches on, and turn the whole place into scrap. That's a fantastic premise, really. The issue was, it felt a little too easy. Security barely felt like security. I pretty much drove in, parked, got out, and walked away. For something built around infiltrating a fortified estate, I was expecting a bit more resistance before the fireworks started. Things did get messier afterward when cops and soldiers started flooding in, and this is where I had more fun than the actual assassination. I ended up scavenging weapons off their bodies and burning through a whole lot of ammo. I had to improvise and turn what should have been a quick getaway into a much bigger bloodbath than probably intended. So again, cool mission idea, just needs more of an oomph. You know what I mean? Then mission 4 happened, and this was the one where I really started seeing the bigger potential. Your target, level archer, is moving in a convoy, and now the game drops you near mounted heavy weapons by a gas station. Already this feels more open. There's more chaos, more moving parts, and more room to screw up, which I absolutely did. My first run failed. My second run, I panicked and shot early, then failed. My third run, I stopped overthinking, and I just blew up the gas station. And that worked beautifully. Instead of trying to surgically eliminate one target, I basically turned an entire city block into collateral damage and slipped away while everything was on fire, all the while still getting a few kills while on foot. That mission was the first time the game really gave me that sense of experimentation where failure actually made me rethink my approach instead of just restarting the same way. And more importantly, it finally started feeling like the game trusted me to be creative. After spending several missions on foot, setting up hits, sniping, rigging explosives, and generally causing chaos, Brigador Killers finally decides that you've been patient enough. You finally get to use a mech. Well, kinda sorta. The final mission in the story demo sends you to Assault Barclaw Estates, basically an ex-park that was bought out by an uber-rich person and turned into another piece of the world for you to blow up. This time you're piloting a proper bipedal machine, a fork-light mech, loaded with rockets and a machine gun, and immediately everything changes. Suddenly all that slower, more methodical assassination stuff gives way to what old Brigador fans were probably waiting for. Walls, homes, and people definitely stop mattering. You're just tearing through structures and blowing apart entire sections of the map, ripping through defenses and leaving destruction everywhere. And that's probably the smartest thing this demo does structurally. It spends time introducing all these new ideas first, then reminds you that yes, this is still Brigador. The balance worked really well for me. It made the mech section feel earned instead of just throwing you into the fray immediately. More than anything, it also reassured me that Stellar Jockeys hasn't forgotten what made the original fun in the first place. They're experimenting much more this time around, sure, but when they want to let you loose, they still absolutely understand the appeal of pure mechanical destruction. And that's where the demo campaign ends. You would think that's it, but no. There's a second campaign in the demo named The Garage. This is where Brigador Killers started feeling less like a guided story demo and more like something that could potentially eat a lot of my time later on. The garage mode seems way more open-ended. Instead of just moving mission to mission, this feels like the place where you're eventually going to be assembling your own arsenal and building out vehicles with customized gear, eventually tackling missions with a lot more flexibility. From what I played, some of these missions were fairly straightforward. You know, go here, extract this, bring it back, but even in this early state, it's still pretty clear this mode could end up being the real meat of the game. This is where my focus started shifting away from just whether the campaign was fun in the moment and more towards how much depth this could actually have long term, which is a very good sign in my eyes. The tactical extraction vibe with gear management and the eventual promise of building increasingly ridiculous machines feels like exactly the kind of thing that could keep people around long after the story missions are done. I can already see the potential for players creating specialized builds with absurdly heavy rigs, fast extraction setups, all that stuff. And yeah, this is also where my brain immediately went to multiplayer. I know Stellar Jockeys already mentioned that's probably unrealistic for a smaller indie team unless this thing absolutely explodes in sales, something like at least 10 times the original, which is fair enough. Still though, you can absolutely feel how fun this would be with co-op or shared tactical runs. Even without that, the Garage feels like a solid addition to an already killer package. So after finishing the story demo and messing around with the Garage for a while, I kept coming back to the same thought. Brigador Killers already has some genuinely strong ideas. The biggest one is probably how different this feels from the first game while still clearly existing in that same miserably violent world. Now, this could have gone very wrong. A sequel to something this niche could have easily just recycled the old formula, throwing you back in a mech and called it a day. Instead, Stellar Jockeys actually seems willing to mess and mix it up a bit, with assassinations, on-foot combat, scavenging, the weight systems, target setups, and more deliberate mission design before eventually giving you that classic large-scale destruction again. It makes the sequel feel like it's trying to expand Brigador instead of just repeat what made it really good. I also really like the shift in perspective. Going from city leveling mercenary to part of a hit squad hunting those same kinds of people gives the world a different kind of texture. It immediately made me more curious about where the story could actually go. And then there's mission design. Even when some sections felt early or undercooked, the better missions already showed flashes of real creativity. The convoy setup, the gas station disaster, scavenging under pressure, really important moments that had me understanding where they want to go with it. That's probably the best way I could put it right now. It definitely still feels unfinished in places, but the vision is there. You can already see the shape of something bigger. Now, with that said, this is absolutely still an early demo, and you can feel that. The biggest issue for me right now, like I mentioned before, is probably going to be the controls and inventory. Mouse and keyboard felt significantly better, but even then, inventory management still feels really awkward. There's clearly an interesting system here with scavenging, with you managing resources on the fly, but right now it can feel more clunky than tactical. The numbers and letters are way too small to really discern what you're getting. Now, I play on PC, but I've always been more of a controller player. And like I mentioned before, this was a much harder sell for me. Maybe that'll improve later on, maybe that's just demo jank, but at the moment, it didn't feel nearly as smooth as I'd want for something where positioning and reaction can matter this much. The early missions felt a bit too quick and easy. A few of the setups are fantastic on paper, but certain objectives felt like they needed more resistance or more layers before reaching the payoff. When the premise is infiltrate this dangerous target, it helps if that target actually feels dangerous before everything explodes. There are also placeholder assets here and there, which I'm not going to beat them up over right now. That's just part of being an early demo. But that polish is going to matter a lot. This kind of game lives or dies on feel. You know, the atmosphere, weight, sound design, mission tension, controls, all of that has to come together. So right now, I'd say the foundation feels strong, but there's definitely some work left to do. So where am I landing with Brigador Killers right now? Well, I'm pretty interested. I love the original Brigador, and this already feels like a smart enough evolution that it got my attention fast. More importantly, it doesn't just feel like seller jockeys dragged out an old name and hoped nostalgia would do the work. They're clearly trying new things here. Some of those ideas still need refining, controls need tightening, the inventory needs some serious work, and a few missions could use some more complexity. But even with those issues, there's enough creativity here that I'm already really curious to see how this develops. The strongest thing this demo did was make me want more. More mission variety, more build depth, and more mechs. And that's probably the best place an early demo can leave me. So yeah, if you played the first Brigador, this is absolutely worth keeping an eye on. And if you didn't, this might end up being one of those weird indie games that slip under most people's radars while quietly becoming something special. For now, I'm definitely gonna wishlist it and hopefully cover it once the full game comes out. I think that about covers Brigador Killers for now. If you played the demo too, definitely let me know what you thought, especially if you ended up finding something wild or unexpected that I missed. I'd love to know where fans of the original fall with this one. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out a lot while we're still growing. Much more to come. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.